When the internet began, bulletin board services, or BBS, became the first online communities of the so-called information superhighway. Using their phone lines, people logged in from all over America to talk about sports, games, movies, and on one BBS in particular, share their ghost stories. Over time, those communities all went dark, except for one lone server that continues to operate somewhere in an unknown part of Pennsylvania's Rust Belt. A relic of the 1990s, veiled in mystery, it is a digital archive of humanity's strangest encounters with the unknown, as told by the people who experienced them. My name is Brandon Schexnayder, and you are listening to Fear Daily.
Subject: Lucid. User: DreamLeapR. Posted January 19th, 1996.
Sleep doesn't shut my head off. It just changes the channel. If I lie still long enough, my body goes numb in layers. Feet first, then legs. Then that heavy, humming paralysis that settles over my chest like something sitting there. I learned not to fight it. Fighting makes you snap awake. Letting it happen feels wrong, but it opens a door. The first time I realized I was dreaming, I was standing in my kitchen. Same low hum from the refrigerator, same crack in the ceiling above the sink that looks like a lightning bolt if you tilt your head just right. Nothing felt dreamlike until I looked at my hands. 6 fingers on the left, too many joints, all of them bending slightly out of sync. The realization didn't jerk me awake, it settled in like a weight dropping into place. Lucid. The air felt thick, like humidity before a storm. Everything looked sharpened, edges too clean, colors pressed too hard into themselves. I walked outside barefoot and felt grit in the pavement. Cold and rough, individual stones pressing into my skin. That stuck with me later. Dreams aren't supposed to bother with details like that. Once you're awake, you don't start breaking things right away. That's how you lose it. You move slow. You let the place accept you. You push gently and see what pushes back. At first, it felt like freedom. Walking through places without resistance, streets that went on longer than they should, rooms I didn't remember but somehow knew. I revisited old apartments, old jobs, places I hadn't thought about in years. They waited for me like they'd been holding their breath. Then I started noticing the people who didn't behave like the rest. Most people drift. They repeat gestures. They blur when you stop looking straight at them. These didn't. They stood around with weight, posture, intention. They leaned against walls, sat on benches, watched. First one spoke to me in a mall. Empty storefronts, metal gates pulled down, the kind of echo you only hear after closing. She stepped into my path near the escalators, forcing me to stop. "You shouldn't look at people like that," she said. Her voice didn't wobble, didn't stretch. It landed exactly where it should. "I'm dreaming," I said, smiling because that's what you do when the dream slips up. Her face tightened instantly, fear sharp and unhidden. "Don't say that," she whispered. "They hear it." I woke up gasping, sheets twisted around my legs like I'd been fighting something. After that, they showed up more often. Different faces, same awareness. The far ends of hallways, reflections that didn't match the room. They weren't people. They weren't even shaped so much as absences, shaped like something tall. The space around them bent wrong, like heat distortion. Whenever I tried to focus on them, my vision slid away. My mind refused to finish drawing them, like it was protecting itself, and I wasn't the only one who saw them. One night, I was standing behind my old high school. The football field lights buzzed overhead, flickering and bathing everything in sick yellow. A man stood near the bleachers, fists clenched, staring at the ground like he was afraid to look up. "You see them too," he said. I nodded. "That means you're staying awake too long," he said. His voice shook. "They don't like repeat visitors." "Who are they?" I asked. He swallowed hard. "Doesn't matter. This place isn't just yours." The lights went out all at once. The sky folded inward like wet paper, and panic hit hard enough to tear me awake. I bit my tongue and tasted blood. After that, the dreams changed. They got smaller, tighter, rooms without windows, corridors that bent back into themselves, places designed to keep you oriented just long enough to realize you weren't going anywhere. Waking up stopped being automatic. I had to work at it. Sometimes I felt the moment stretch, like something pressing down on my chest, holding me there an extra second, sometimes longer. I started noticing gaps during the day, losing time, standing in rooms and not remembering walking into them, driving familiar routes and arriving without recalling the turns. I told myself I was tired. Everyone's tired. They were closer now. Last night I was in my apartment, perfect copy. Same hum from the fridge, same shadows along the baseboard. I checked my hands, counted my fingers, looked at the clock twice. Lucid. They were already there. 3 of them standing in the corners. The room felt crowded enough, though nothing touched me. One stepped forward. It didn't speak with sound. The meaning arrived fully formed, heavy, already inside my bed. You return consistently. I wake up, I said, every time. Not fully. It showed me things then. Slips, overlaps, moments when I'd been moving without remembering deciding to. Conversations I couldn't recall starting, awareness bleeding through. Awareness has weight, it said. You carry it across. What do you want? I asked. To observe, to preserve awareness when it appears. You're using us? I said. A pause. Then, you volunteer. It told me I could stop, let the nights go dark again, forget how to stay awake inside them, go back to moving through this place blind. Or I could continue, stay lucid, stay visible. What happens if I stay? I asked. You will not be alone anymore. I woke up shaking, but the feeling didn't fade. The world feels thin now. Sounds arrive a fraction late. Reflections linger too long. When I close my eyes even for a second, I feel pressure, like something leaning in, waiting. I don't know how much longer I get to choose whether I sleep. I just know that once something noticed me noticing it, it did not stop watching.
Subject: the grave of Dennis Ozowski. User: Pindelair. Posted May 1st, 1997.
Right now, skinny young men in flannel shirts singing songs about despair and finding themselves at right angles to the world are playing out of every radio and boombox across the country. Don't get me wrong, there's a lot to be said for grunge, and I think time will be kind to songwriters like Kurt Cobain and Eddie Vedder. It's just that there's not much hope in that music. Dennis Ozowski, though, in the brief time I knew him, radiated hope like a miniature sun, one shaped like a chubby Midwestern guitarist who loved cigarettes and Lucky Charms. I'd say the world could use more men like him, but I don't think that many are made. I think that, like Dennis, they come along when we need them most, give of themselves, and in the process, disappear. Dennis Ozowski arrived into my life fully formed, and if you told me he'd arrived into the world that way too, I'd believe you. It was the winter of 1989, and I was working for an accounting firm in Midtown. Every day, I'd take the subway into the city, getting off at Penn Station before walking the 4 blocks to my firm. Then, one random Wednesday, I was having the worst morning imaginable. It had been raining for days. My socks were wet, and I'd been mugged coming in on the train. I was in a funk, to put it mildly. I stepped onto the platform and heard a song coming from somewhere on the other side of the crowd of commuters that made me feel lighter than air. A man's voice was singing it, and it had the familiarity of a song you've heard 100 times but can't quite name. I later found out it was original to him. The song washed away all the tension built up since the mugging. It wasn't that it made me forget about what happened, as much as I suddenly felt capable of looking past it. The mugger hadn't taken all my cash, and I'd come out unharmed. Really, it was the best-case version of a bad scenario. He had, however, taken my watch, and a glance at the clock on the station wall told me I was running way behind, so I didn't meet the mysterious vocalist that day. It was a week later, another Wednesday, when I pushed my way toward the source of the music. He was young, no older than 22, 23, with a head of shaggy black hair and a belly that extended over the waist of his black sweatpants. Once he had finished his tune, I introduced myself, and he said it was nice to meet me. After a moment of awkward silence, I asked what his name was, and he looked confused, as if not expecting the question. Hurriedly, he introduced himself as Dennis Ozowski. This was, I'd eventually learn, typical Dennis. He didn't really understand social conventions like a space alien who'd been plunked down to Earth, guitar in hand. Of course, he wasn't actually a space alien, at least no more than anyone else from Minneapolis. That's not to say I'm totally sure what he was. I don't think he knew himself. There was something in the singer's easygoing manner that put me at ease, and I invited him out for lunch, an invitation he declined. Wednesdays, he said, were the only days he got to perform on the platform. Coming out here any other day of the week, he averred, would infringe on someone else's time, and he didn't feel that was right. Instead, I offered him lunch at the 2nd Avenue Deli the following day, which he accepted with a delightful smile. Over matzo ball soup, something he marveled at, the concept of meatless meatballs apparently being new to him, Dennis told me he'd come to New York after the death of his grandmother, who had raised him. His own parents were nebulous, mysterious figures rarely spoken of. Mostly, his entire world could be reduced down to his grandmother and the guitar she taught him to play. My granny was sick for a long time, he said. Cancer. But my music made her feel better. She told me it would take away her aches and pains, so I'd play till my fingers bled. She showed those doctors they gave her 2 years, and instead, we got another 10. Hadn't it bothered him, I asked, that he'd spent his formative years alone with his grandmother and not out making friends? He shook his head. I never got on well with other kids anyways. Not for lack of trying, it's more that they all seem to know what to say and when to say it, and I don't. They close ranks. I understood. It wasn't personal, just human nature. And I had Granny, so there was nothing to miss. The death of his grandmother had been the thing which sent Dennis on the odyssey that led him here. 4 years on the road, hitchhiking first from Minneapolis to the Pacific Northwest, then across the plains to Chicago, supporting himself by playing and singing in roadhouses, truck stops, really anywhere that let him sit long enough to take his guitar out. Money, he said, would find him when he needed it most, but it was still a lean way to live. Saying this, he smiled and self-consciously patted his stomach. I guess God wanted me to have company out there. No matter how much time there was between meals, the old gut never got smaller. Go figure, eh? The healing power of his music had proved to work on other people too. Word got out among truck drivers that there was a guitar player on the highway who played away what ailed you in exchange for a ride. Dennis says he lost count of how much gout and back pain the men said he had cured over the dozens of rides he was given. His story trailed off into a chuckle before he blushed and added, "A few said I cured their VD too, though I didn't ask for proof. Some offered, believe me. No, thank you." Surprisingly to me, sex was the one subject in which he had very little interest. All the guitar players I knew back in college picked up the instrument with the express goal of getting laid, but not Dennis. According to him, the notes occupied his head more than anything else. Over the course of those years on the road, he learned how to divine which combos of notes performed which healings. He claimed there were songs for inflammation, songs for broken bones, even ones for emotions to ward off sadness, anger, despair. Those songs only work for a little while, he said ruefully. But my grandmother used to say a moment of peace is worth a lifetime of holler, so maybe a little while is enough. I mostly play those ones in the subway to see if I can't ease everyone's day some. When I asked him if he could tell when his music was healing someone, he nodded. What, I wanted to know, did it feel like? His face clouded over and took a sip of his coffee. Like I'm giving part of myself away. It's the best and worst thing in the world. When first setting out from Minneapolis, Dennis said he hadn't known exactly where he was meant to end up. Then, 6 months ago, he'd been living on the couch of a woman named Joanna who ran a hospice clinic in Muncie, Indiana. She provided free end-of-life care for people whose insurance couldn't or wouldn't cover their costs. He would play songs to prolong the lives of those who wished it and to take away the pain for those who didn't. A dream sent him on a different path. If not for what I saw that night, I might have stayed there until Joanna closed the place, or I passed on myself, whichever came first. The dream changed all that. It was horrible. Fire falling from the sky, the streets full of rubble, of bodies, men, Women, children, everyone. Worst of all, there was no hope, no unity. Whatever had happened, it broke their spirits completely. Slowly, I began to hear a song over the crying and the sirens, the most beautiful song I'd ever heard. Once it played, the scene in front of me transformed. I couldn't stop what happened, but everything that came after was different. People banded together, pulling each other up and out of the wreckage. They set up field hospitals, organized search parties for the lost, again, only for a little while, but maybe a little while is enough. When it was over, I knew I had to come here and teach myself the song. I tried pressing him for details. What was the catastrophe he saw? When was it coming? And got nothing but shrugs. I don't know. All I know was that I had to come here and learn the song. Once I do, everything else will become clear. Over the months that followed, Dennis and I would talk regularly on my way to and from work. There were more lunches, too. I introduced him to the wonders of pho and sushi, but delis were his favorite. I'd ask him how the song was coming along, and he'd always call it a real puzzler. The whole thing was so unlikely that I would sometimes still doubt it was real. Then I'd step off the train on a Wednesday morning, and his notes would be bouncing off the station's tiled walls. My shoulders would drop, my heart rate would slow, and for the rest of the day, not another thing in this world could bother me. Finally, one day in January, he saw me get off the train and called me over. The song was finally finished, he said, and he had been waiting for me before he played it. He said that in the process of learning the song, he had come to understand that the spell was so big, he'd have to give more of himself than ever before. When I asked him exactly how much, he gave me a wan smile, saying quietly, all of it. Before I could think of what to say, he thanked me for all the lunches, for being the first friend he'd had since his grandmother. With that, he began playing the most beautiful tune I've ever heard. It was soft and sweet, yet full of strength. The notes seemed to build and build, twisting around one another until you could see them in the air, golden sparks fizzing into life. The more he picked, the more content Dennis looked, and the more commuters stopped to watch. It was like nothing I'd ever experienced before, like a communal prayer. The gold in the air was joined by pinpricks of bright red swirling around one another like a conjurer's trick. Gradually, I became aware that the longer the light show went on, the softer the watching faces became. The cynicism of a city melting away. It wasn't the only thing disappearing. Sparks began to fly off his body, too, as if he were dissolving. Suddenly, I knew what he meant by all of it, and I wanted him to stop. Dennis must have seen the look on my face because he silently mouthed something, a phrase that wouldn't make sense to anyone there but me. It's only for a little while. A moment later, his face took on a beatific expression, and the air in the station turned white as the sound of his guitar and my heart swelled. After the white light faded, those of us assembled on the platform looked at one another with a sense of connection I've never known before. Fragments of gold and red still danced high up by the ceiling, spreading outwards in their thousands. As for Dennis, he was gone, his hope winding its way out of the subway and into the city, his gift. I don't know what awaits this city in the future, but I know that when we pull together, instead of falling apart, it'll be because of Dennis Ozowski and what he gave to us that day.
Fear Daily is an independent podcast hosted by Brandon Schexnayder and written by Brennan Storr, with Joanna Smith serving as the consulting editor, audio production by Rachel Boyd, and sound design by Southern Gothic Media. This podcast is a work of fiction. Names, characters, places, and incidents are either products of the author's imagination or are used fictitiously. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, or to real events or locations, is entirely coincidental. Ad-free versions of Fear Daily are available now on your favorite podcast apps. For more information, visit feardaily.com. But move fast, before the server goes offline.